I'm Larry Stein, and we're at the Port Townsend Film Festival 2013, the 14th annual Port Townsend Film Festival. And we host a lot of great filmmakers every year at the festival, and we hope to interview as many of them as we can. And today I have with me Suzan Beraza, who's the director of a very ambitious and very beautiful film called Uranium Drive-In. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Larry.
Your film is truly beautiful in a lot of ways, and but just to start, I mean, it's visually beautiful in terms of color and in terms of cinematography. I've got to say, among the other films I've seen in the festival, it's strikingly beautiful.
Yeah, I mean that was a goal very early on, is that we wanted the film to be poetic the way it looked, and so we worked really hard to make sure this not only was the cinematography really excellent, but that we worked really hard with post-production and color, because we wanted to create a certain mood and a feeling of, because the film is so much about nostalgia versus reality, we wanted it to have sort of a feeling that you were almost within a memory as you were looking at certain scenes in the film.
Yeah, and it does. Let's give a framework for people who maybe haven't seen the film. We're telling the story of a small town of about 500 people in Colorado.
Yeah.
Who are struggling with the issues that are being repeated all over the country and all over the world now, of jobs versus environment, jobs versus quality of health
Right.
and life.
Yeah.
Tell us the framework of this film.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what makes it, what helps the story in all its complexity is that the west end of Montrose County, where the film takes place, these towns of Natarita and Nucla, Colorado, it's right on the Utah border. They're former uranium mining towns, so they have this deep heritage in uranium, and obviously the industry went bust about 20-30 years ago. But then not far away is this very wealthy ski resort town, Telluride, Colorado, which is very, I would say, much more liberal, and there's a lot of environmental organizations there. So this poor part of the county gets sort of this carrot dangled in front of them, which is the fact that the uranium industry is saying they're going to come back to their community and they're going to build this uranium mill. And what that would do is there's about 50 to 100 mines that could be operational, but they're just sort of dormant, waiting for something to happen.
So there were 50 to 100 uranium mines?
Yeah, at least, yeah.
It's interesting when we think about mining and stories about miners, we're so common to hear about the coal miners, but I think the story of uranium miners is kind of forgotten or pushed to the side. It's not in public awareness like the coal miner story.
Yeah, and I guess part of that is because uranium mining, there's been very little of it in the U.S., and within the last 20-30 years it's been happening overseas. So we don't really think much about uranium miners, you're right.
Right, but as you see in your film, I mean, the health issues of mining are very hard on the miners. And the nature of uranium and what they're exposed to. I mean, you in painfully clear detail, you see that the toll that this takes on the miners in your film.
Yeah, there definitely, especially years ago, we have a few miners in the film who mined, back in the 60s, 70s, before there was ventilation, before there were really any safety measures. There are very few safety measures for the miners. The industry's definitely come a long way, and they're now obviously all mines are ventilated, and many people, and that's part of the what I love about the film is that it's really people's opinions about whether, so in the film the people who live in this community really want the industry to come back, which at first I thought surely they don't want this industry back because they've had so much harm, but they are so desperate for the jobs and they want their community to survive and to thrive. They love the uranium industry and they want it back.
A lot of them grew up with that industry,
yeah,
and even though they saw their fathers and grandfathers maybe die from the effects,
right,
or be handicapped from the effects of what they were exposed to, it's their life.
Right.
And I think what's really powerful in the film is seeing the really heartfelt feelings of those people, and then the people from Telluride and the people from outside who are really concerned about the safety and health benefits and the health problems caused by this kind of mining.
Yeah.
And so we've got a classic kind of environmentalism versus jobs
Yeah.
struggle, but we see it through the very personal lives of these people.
Yeah, I was really wanted the film to have a balanced perspective, and also to get so it's not an essay style film where you're learning about uranium. It's much more going deeply into especially three main characters' lives and seeing what it's like to walk in their shoes, and hopefully ultimately after the film, both sides feel compassion for what they consider to be the opposite viewpoint of their own, even if they're not swayed, obviously, over to that opinion. At least you can understand why somebody would be willing to work in a mine when it means their kid gets to go to college, or they have enough money to keep their internet turned on. I mean, it's really basic things that these people want.
There's some heartbreaking stories of people in the town just struggling to get socks for their kids.
Yeah.
And it's really touching. And the mayor of the town is so invested in keeping our town going. And she's a powerful character. Yeah,
she just really wants the community to survive. I mean, it's gotten so bad in that community. You know, so after the mines, there was a period of about 20 years that they kept going because of cleanups, doing mining cleanups and that kind of thing. But then, you know, it's just completely dried up in the last, say, 10 years. So she is just looking at this potential mill coming in as their salvation.
And the film's title, Uranium Drive-In, is linked to one of those icons of the 50s and 60s and the period of the rise of nuclear energy, and they have the Uranium Drive-In.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Uranium Drive-In itself.
Yeah, you know, a lot of times filmmakers, you struggle with what your title is going to be. I immediately know what the title was going to be because I guess to me, so there was a Uranium Drive-In movie theater, and just that whole thing, I feel like nostalgia plays a big part in the film because, you know, when you're a little kid and, you know, you think the tree in front of your house is the biggest, most amazing tree, and then when you're an adult, you come back and you're like, well, it's kind of not a very big tree at all, or whatever it is. But nostalgia plays and memories play such an important part in how we perceive reality. So to me, just the fact that they had their drive-in movie theater, which is such a thing of nostalgia. Usually they're called like the Starlight or you know, there's usually some name to go with your drive-in or, you know, something. But here it's Uranium Drive-In, and just the two.
That was the life of the town.
It's a complete paradox.
Uranium was the fuel of the future.
Right.
In the 50s when they built the Uranium Drive-In.
Yeah, and I just found it summed up the entire film perfectly.
It did. And they so the Uranium Drive-In kind of itself, the drive-in itself, kind of weaves in and out of the film.
Right.
Sometimes I don't want to give away
any
but wonderful twists and turns. But
yeah.
But speaking of twists and turns, there are a lot of twists and turns in terms of the possibilities of this mine happening, and then lawsuits, and then maybe the mine's not going to happen, maybe the mine's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's been a flip-flop.
Right.
In which is this going to even be possible, or is it going to be economically possible? And it still, I guess, is not resolved.
No, it's not resolved. There's still lawsuits going on. It's the kind of story that it will probably take, 10 years for them to figure out all the lawsuits and the water and this and that, and the price of uranium is too low for them to build. So we had to make a very conscientious decision about 2 years into the project, because we filmed for about 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. We had to have an ending to the film, and
right.
We had to figure out, we can't wait until, they finally come to a decision. So that was, obviously not to give it away, but how the Uranium Drive-In sort of helped us coming up with a sense of closure for the film. And there's no telling if and when they'll build the mill.
Yeah. So the tension between the people in the small town and the people in the big tourist town of Telluride is a very significant part of the film. Their feelings about each other.
Yeah, and I would have to say that the people in Telluride, which is where I live, it's not, they actually don't have any animosity towards the people in Nuclear Natarita. It's more that they just completely ignore them, like they don't even exist. And I think in a lot of ways that's even more hurtful than having this sort of resentment. But for sure the people in Nuclear Natarita are very resentful of Telluride because they feel like they are stopping them from getting this mill, which would mean their survival. So they are looking them as a direct block to their very future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have a very, this dynamic between environment and jobs and different parts of the community is, plays out all around the country, and it's playing out in our Port Townsend area, in that we have a paper mill that's been one of the largest employers in the region, and it's had applications to have a biomass burning plant, and that there's environmental considerations about that, and there's been action on various sides to whether this is really safe for the environment or not, and the plant wants to do it, and the advocates of the planters say this is jobs, this is giving the ordinary people in this region jobs. How can we turn away? It's such a hard fight, jobs versus the environment. Right.
There's really no winner usually.
No.
So, I mean, I would say that the film really does take a sympathetic look at the people who do want the jobs. And what I'm hoping that people will come away with after seeing the film, which is kind of the journey that I took, is instead of just being in your very hard set position, like I'm absolutely against or I'm absolutely for it, to try to find common ground. And if you can't even find common ground, at least having compassion and empathy for what people are going through from the other side. And I'd say that's the goal of the film, that at the end of it you can say, well, at least I know what it's like for them, and I can have a bit of understanding and empathy.
How recently was the film finished? When did you have its first screenings?
Well, just finished very shortly ago. We did a premiere in Telluride, and it went really well, but the film wasn't completely finished. We had some things we had to fix. So really, this is the first festival since we finished the film.
I think it's the real finished film.
Yeah.
Wonderful. What an honor for us to really get that.
And it was really great for me because it's that whole thing, will it play in Peoria kind of thing, where it did really well in Telluride, but people there really knew the issue, and it was a hot topic for them. So I was glad to see that even though the film is a microcosm of a much bigger issue, that it's a scene that's playing out around the country, around the world, and not even just about environmental or extractive resources. It can be somewhere where there was a big business that left town. There's even parallels to towns that have the big prison industry. So I mean, I feel like it could be a film that does work in places. So I was really happy to see its reception here.
It's a universal story, really, that's been worked out all over the country.
Yeah.
So what's the reaction of the people in Natarita who have seen it now? What do they say?
Well,
did they come to Telluride to see it?
Our main characters and several other characters came to Telluride. There was a panel discussion after both screenings, and they were fantastic. Very heated, but really good.
It just opens up the debate again.
Yeah. So there was a really great discussion, and people from the audience got involved. We're doing a screening of the film in Natarita in October. So that will be a time when the greater community gets to see the film. And of course, I'm a little bit nervous about it. I was nervous about it showing in Telluride because it's my hometown. I was like, I could get run out of town and have to move to Port Townsend.
Well, looking at it as a film from the outset, I have to say it fairly presents everybody. It doesn't load the dice against one or one against the other.
That's good.
It's really talking about this very serious split that happens in these kind of discussions, and we see the important things to all the players.
Well, I think it could be easy to sort of, especially because I do consider myself an environmentalist. I thought the easy way could have been to make the other side feel like they were not very smart, or that they would want this. But I just felt like that would be a complete cheap shot and not honest, because they do know more about uranium than a lot of the environmentalists do, even, which you maybe wouldn't expect. And I wanted to present their story in the most truthful, respectful way that I could.
So the film will be making the circuit of film festivals and finding ways to get distribution. But I think seeing the quality of this film, I mean, it's going to be widely seen. I think
I hope
it
so.
presses the buttons in the right places.
You heard it first here from Larry. The film will be widely seen. I hope so.
I advocate it, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's really quite a powerful film.
Yeah, we're playing at a bunch of festivals coming up, which is exciting, including Doc NYC, which is a great festival in New York City, United Nations Film Festival, Stars Denver.
So that's great.
Yeah, quite a few festivals
So the
coming up.
next, each month or so, you've got a festival to go.
Oh yeah, like 3 or 4 a
So
month.
that's part of the marketing budget
Yeah,
of a film like this, you have
exactly.
to go everywhere.
Yeah, you try to, yeah.
So you were the primary director, producer, or you were, it was really your project?
And I definitely had an amazing team, and I have another producer that works with me. So, and I edit as well, but I have editors. So I would say that we're a real collaborative team, and that's how I personally like to work. My background is theater, directing, and I just really believe in a collaboration.
Yeah.
So I love my team, and I've worked with them for a couple films now, and
Great.
we like each other.
Great. Well, thank you for being with us here in Port Townsend. We're honored to have your film as almost a premiere here.
Yeah.